What's something completely normal today that would have been considered witchcraft 400 years ago, but not because of technology? Breakdance and beatboxing. See, this just makes me think that there must have been people who were as talented with beatboxing sound effects like Michael Winslow back in the day. Was there someone hanging out in the taverns in Austria beatboxing chamber music for all the people to working class to go see Mozart's new opera? Or seafaring beatboxers during the Age of Exploration? A big difference is communication and spread of techniques. Just think how easy it is now to be exposed to skills invented by 100 different people. 500 years ago, you'd be lucky to find a single skilled person who could even give you tips. I wonder if maybe there was crossover between singers and hunters in ages past that might have produced someone like that. Imitating bird calls and other animal noises has been a well-regarded skill probably for tens of thousands of years at the least, and singing has been around probably just as long. How far along was hyper-realistic art back then? Cause that is borderline witchcraft here and now. Drawing or painting in a hyper-realistic style has become way easier after photography was invented. Now, you only have to copy a photo one-to-one and bam, realistic artwork. Before photos, you actually had to look at a three-dimensional object and try to capture it on a two-dimensional canvas. And you had to be quick about it because the direction of your light source sun will change position and the object you are drawing will change over time as well. Flowers wilt, leaves turn brown, and so on. Much trickier. Basic hygiene and having doctors wash their hands between autopsies and surgeries for real. Back when we first discovered germ theory, there was a huge backlash of doctors who refused to wash their hands because they were offended that anyone would think that the hands of gentlemen could be dirty, even when their hands were, like, covered in blood and phlegm. It's the same mindset as the people who got mad at being asked to wear a mask during the pandemic because I can't be sick. I'm a good person. Having cats in your house. Mostly women had cats at this time period, and due to this they weren't infected by the plague caused by rats, so they were considered witches, thinking they have some superpowers to not get infected. Edit. Just to clarify, cats can also get the plague and spread it, but the risk was reduced since they control the rat's population. Rats are the primary carriers of the oriental rat flea Xenopsilla sciopus, which carries the bacteria that causes the plague, not cats. This is also where a ton of, though obviously not all of, anti-Semitism came from, because the Judaic peoples had a lot of customs about washing one's body as symbolic of washing one's soul, as well as very strict ideas about separating the dead from the living quickly and completely at a time where ideas of how disease spread were incredibly archaic, and so hand and body washing was only done rarely and corpses often lingered for days or weeks at a time. Jewish communities managed to dodge a lot of the worst of the plague. These communities were subsequently blamed for it and thus ostracized and harassed, and that fermented in the public eye for a few hundred years, and now we have people who hate Jews for absolutely no real reason other than it essentially being a family tradition at this point. As soon as you opened your mouth, they'd probably attack you, even if you were in an English-speaking area. There's some cool videos on YouTube showing how different English was over time. The amount of love and affection we give cats and dogs, to the point that some of us live alone, with animals that we allow to sleep in our bed and cuddle on the sofa. There are places in the world where this is still seen as weird. I once knew someone from Kenya, and they told me that dogs would never be allowed into someone's home. Asking your wife for an opinion. This sounds humorous, but there are plenty of instances throughout history of men, powerful men even, respecting their wives' opinions and intelligence. I know it's not 400 years, merely 250 or so, but John Adams comes to mind as a man who absolutely valued his wife's mind and opinions. If you are taking current knowledge back 400 years, any basic physics or chemistry tricks could be perceived as magic. It is frightening how many people here post false stuff and lack a basic understanding of history, and that in so many fields. Most, if not all, comments are also really Eurocentric and seem to focus on the European post-classic cliché we see in films. Not everyone was dirty, not everyone treated women badly, especially when we look globally, but also not in Europe, and in particular also not in 1624, the Renaissance. People seem to think about 1024, and even then it depends on where in Europe. Most of these answers do nothing but reveal the ignorance of those who write them. Being able to tell the future with my magic 8-ball. Try again later. True wisdom. I have an ancestor that was a witness in the Fairfield CT witch trials, and I found a book outlining the trial he was in. The main accuser stated the most obvious reason this lady was a witch: she sat on the railing of her porch that one time ... so that not getting sick due to most basic of hygiene like washing your hands after going to the toilet and before eating, plus not getting sick from drinking water because you boiled it for 20 or so minutes. Just using clean cutlery helped with that. Eating with your hands or with cutlery that wasn't washed after each meal will add many pathogens to what you eat. Even if you washed your hands after using the loo, you touch other stuff. Removing that vector skin contact makes so much sense. Most medicines, but specifically penicillin, an infected wound would often result in amputation if the leeches and offerings to the spirits of healing were insufficient. Years ago, my mom got into astrology. Her Mormon family accused her of being a witch and forcibly tried to have her committed. People who believe in astrology should be committed, just not for being a witch, stating that you don't believe in God, there is no God. In Europe, you're landing at about the start of the Enlightenment, when atheism was coming back into fashion. If the USA, sure, but the Puritans would execute you for celebrating Christmas too. And don't even start on Cromwell's England. Blues music. 100 years ago, people considered it to be the devil's music, so I think it's fair to say Puritans would have had an issue with it. 70 years ago, they thought that rock and roll was the devil's music. Are we talking technology like internet and cell phones? Because everything now has some sort of technology, even if it's like Industrial Revolution tech like bicycles or soap on a rope. The classic magic trick where you make it look like you're removing your thumb and then putting it back on again. Your foremother showed me that one back when dinosaurs roamed the earth mate ... It was twice as impressive because she didn't even have opposable thumbs and had to break the bone to do it. The Epley maneuver. It's a cure for a common cause of vertigo and can be life-changing. We have calcium crystals floating in liquid inside our ears called otoliths that our bodies use to determine movement, orientation, acceleration, etc. But it's possible for them to move down a canal where they don't belong and cause extreme dizziness and nausea to the point of being disabled. The Epley maneuver consists of moving a patient's head in a series of specific directions which will cause crystals that are in the wrong location to float back to where they belong. Women living alone in our own houses that we bought and paid for with our own money. I'm not sure how many more years we've got to enjoy it. I'd love to show some mad 1600 seconds puritanical bastard the 22-inch wings I have tattooed on my back. Some Egyptian mummies have tattoos. We think tattoos date back 4,000 years. Tattoos come up surprisingly often in the original Sherlock Holmes stories, though they're much more recent than 400 years. Women in living arrangements other than caring for husband plus kids or elders. Seems to me that women living alone or with other women has been distrusted historically, perhaps not universally, but all over the world. The match. While the Chinese did invent something similar in the 14th century, the modern match wasn't invented until around 1800. And a Bic lighter? Definitely a master witch. If you gave a Puritan a McDonald's meal, they would consider it heresy and witchcraft because of how sweet and salty it was. Sure, they'd enjoy the meal, but also enjoy burning you to bacon. Vaccines that prevent disease to the point where you can walk into a ward of people with the disease confident that you won't get it.
Thank you for watching. Like this video, share your impressions in the comments. See you later.